seems, if we're going to talk about, and I know the sponsors on previous bills have lamented about local control, and then this is the wrong kind of local control. But when we're going to start telling them that they shall, we're removing local control. So I think that they shall consider, and the dimensions of this, 2,000 feet or greater, which when you consider the setbacks required, you start to look at, and then you start to split that. Then you're talking about basically being able to put not even an actual home, but when you have a 30-foot instead of even a 40-foot, when you have a 40-foot by 50-foot lot, which would give you 2,000 square feet, and then you divide that, you know, a 40-foot by 50-foot lot, and then you put a 30-foot setback on that, and then you have 10-foot easements on the back. Basically, you have room for a shed. So if you're going to have this, and again, we'll hear from the sponsors saying that we're complaining about local control and that this is the long sort of local control. But ultimately, what this bill does is it allows the state, for the purpose of subdividing lots, to violate en masse the contracts that the citizens of Colorado have signed with their neighbors, with their communities, with the state itself. So it's great to give them the opportunity to do this in places where they need to, but if you start saying shall, it's no longer an option, it's a mandate, it's no longer local control, it's state control. And if there's anything that this state has recognized, is that anything that comes out of Denver is generally a bad idea. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a really, really important amendment, and one that has been largely or completely neglected. This idea has been completely neglected in these processes of building, of creating the Colorado totalitopia, that we need to have that we want to have everybody piled up on top of each other with no egress routes, with no parking anywhere near. So when laws from last year eliminate parking, and yeah, citizens of Colorado, now just remember that transit-oriented housing means that your apartment complex can now build another apartment complex on top of the parking lot, and you don't have parking. Where's that going to go? That's going to go on streets. What happens on the streets? Well, now you've got both lanes clogged up because we don't live in your 15-minute cities yet. We don't have that. Or when we do, then you have buses, and then you have these houses that are crammed so close together that the fire jumps from one to the other. And I think you're so focused on building Colorado because you think that the governor is all enthused about people living in 3-story high in shipping containers, that you forget that there are other aspects to this. We live in a high desert. We live in a fire-prone area. We have a lot of issues around this, and when we start cramming people together in these manners without a specific focus on having egress routes, then that's how that will work until it fails catastrophically. And at some point, it will fail catastrophically, because you're not just doing this in a certain area. You're not just giving the county commissioners the option to do it. You're telling them they shall split these lots. They shall. Why? Because you think it's a good idea. Why? Because we have record high numbers of vacancies across Colorado, Denver, Colorado Springs. We have high numbers of vacancies, record high numbers of vacancies. So what do we need to do? We need to split those lots. What are those lots after they split? Well, basically, you can put a tiny home on them. How many people can live in there? There's really no, because we got rid of arbitrary occupancy limits last year. Where do the cars park? Not on the driveway, because not in the garage, because there's no parking lots required. How many people can live in there? No limit, because there's no definition to family, and arbitrary occupancy limits were eliminated. So we're not just talking about building denser. We're talking about just building people on top of people. And if you ignore this aspect, again, it will work until it fails catastrophically, and then you will have catastrophe. So I urge an aye vote on this, because this is an aspect in Colorado that is very, very I mean, it's happening all over the place. When they run these things, you get bottlenecks, you get traffic stuck, and if you have a fire, if people are having to evacuate for a fire, and then you double the number of houses, and then you make that so that there's no fire breaks in between them, and they start jumping from house to house. This bill is just another disaster in the making. I mean, for the housing, for the market, and now in this case, without this amendment, for fire danger. So I ask for an aye vote on this amendment because this is an area of planning that the people who look at this will tell you is woefully, is generally completely overlooked. And you have to have this. You have to have multiple ingress routes and egress routes in order to move people out. They need to have the roads available. You're not going to be able to bring in enough buses to get everybody out in a timely manner free from your 15-minute city. Yeah, again, normally this is all handled at the local level. And for some reason, Denver feels like the bureaucracy needs to take over from the local level. Why? Because somebody in the Colorado State Demographer's Office has deemed that we need 34,100 new housing units annually over the next decade, despite record vacancies now, and despite that our population growth is a fraction of sustaining. I think somebody needs to drug test the Colorado State Demographer's Office, because when it was asked what these are based on...
Representative DeGraaf, let's not go down that road. That's not appropriate to make assumptions like that as to whether or not the State Demographer's Office is on drugs. Let's not make assertions like that.
Okay. But when people I know that are dealing with the State Demographer's Office, and they say, we need these projections, and they say, what are these projections based on? And they're told that they're based on a large number of 12 to 18-year-old females moving into the area. Now, where they're coming from, nobody knows, but they're projecting that they're going to arrive. And they're projecting that they're going to arrive, and that this new influx of young fertile females is going to create the need for 34,100 housing units per year. Despite that, year after year after year, our housing numbers have outpaced our population. And we have record numbers of vacancies. We've talked about that over and over, and it's just like, well, we have record numbers of vacancies now, but miraculously, we're going to grow. And that doesn't have anything to do, strangely, with throwing large amounts of money at, or the YIMBY developers throwing large amounts of money at the legislation. And I'm still looking for in here where these are limited. I do see approval by subject jurisdictions, and I always think it's interesting that you consider the citizens of Colorado to be your subjects. The citizens, the counties, or whatever, they are not your subjects, Your Excellency. They are the citizens of Colorado. They are the only ones that have rights. They are the ones that have, for whom you are sworn to secure the rights of life, liberty, and property. And now you're taking, with a bill like this, you're saying, you're taking the property, and you're saying that the state of Colorado, the bureaucrats...
Representative, I just want to remind you that we are still on the amendment.
Oh yeah, I'm there.
We're not talking about His Excellency. We're talking about fire services and lot splitting.
Well, I'm definitely talking about the bill, because the bill...
You can talk about the bill in a minute. I want you to talk about the amendment.
Well, the bill in relation to the amendment.
Okay.
That we're talking about subject jurisdictions, and that we're talking about if we need to be defending, securing the life, liberty, and property. The bill takes away the property, and this, yeah, there's some call out to it possibly about safety, but this just expands it, and it just says, let's codify this, that we need to make sure that we have the emergency evacuation routes in place. So if this is contained in the bill, then just add it to the bill. Just add it to the bill, say we're going to put that in the bill, no harm, no foul, everybody's comfortable, make sure that we have that requirement in there, because otherwise we are skeptical that this is in the bill. And now you're dealing with the lives of the people of Colorado by putting them in danger when you don't give them an evacuation route, proper evacuation routes, and you create panic when there is a fire. And there was a wildfire down Highway 105 just over the weekend. Big one. Normally this is taken care of at the county level. They allow a certain number of houses. They allow a certain number of properties. I'm still looking for who's subject and how this is not going to approval process, subject jurisdiction, how this does not apply to the entire state. And if it doesn't apply to the entire state, why is it being done in the state house? Because this is taking away local control. This is putting state mandates, ideologically driven, on bad data. Put this in, make sure that we're at least covering for your bad data and your bad ideas by putting in fire lanes, making sure that we have the safety consideration to protect the lives of our citizens since you're taking away their property. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask for a no vote on this also. I mean, I'm still trying to find where it's limited. I see in our sheet here that it's limited to metro planning organizations of 1,000 people or more, but it's clearly a stepwise function to the entire state. So I think it's a bad idea for the entire state. I think it's a bad idea for the locals, whatever local it is. The local areas have this ability. Now, I don't know where the state demographer gets its numbers, but they sure seem to be disassociated from reality. We have record numbers of vacancies. We have a birth rate that is only a fraction of sustaining. We have homes growing at a rate faster than the population, year after year after year. And so to base this from the state level on 34,100, and that just makes me laugh in general, 34,100 units per year. That's like saying 89.75% of all statistics are made up on the spot. And they generally have a couple factors of decimal points in there for the false sense of accuracy. 34,100 new units. That's a bogus number. I'm just telling you, from a math standpoint, that's a bogus number. That is a degree of confidence that is not supported and not supportable by the state demographer's office. I don't care what they're not smoking. I said not. The division of an existing residential lot resulting in the creation of one additional lot provides meaningful benefits. That's a declarative statement. Provides meaningful benefits. What it also does is it devalues all of the property in the area. It benefits one, the developer, who can now tap into all of the means, the infrastructure that is not stressed, because the infrastructure in that neighborhood, for whatever municipality, metropolitan planning organization, unless they created a factor of safety in their planning, normally for civil engineering, I think it is about 1.5%. It's a lot lower for aviation, just because of the weights involved. But usually you're going to have 1.5%. So if you have housing on a street and you build that capacity, you're not going to build it just for 100%. Say, well, each housing unit is going to be 5. The average home is going to be 5 people on this street, and some will be a little bit more, some will be a little bit less, but we know that it's going to be on average 5. And there's 100, let's say there's 100 homes on that main trunk line. Well, that's 500 people. And you would have a factor of safety up to about, maybe it could handle 750 if you used a 1.5% factor of safety. But now what you're going to do is, by this, you are going to double that. And you're going to say on this trunk line, on this part right here, you're going to have 1,000 people. You're going to instantly go up to 1,000 people authorized on that line, whether it's water, whether it's sewer, whether it's electrical. Oh, but wait, there's more. You got rid of occupancy limits last year. Oh, and you also got rid of any definition of family. So a single family home can now have anybody with whom you feel a kinship. So you walk down the street, you call somebody bro, you can move into the house together because you're kin. And they can bring their family in. And now instead of 100 homes with 5 people each, you could have 100 homes with 10 or 20 people each. And then you could split that lot. So that's 2,000. And then you could split that lot and you have 4,000. And then you have a factor of safety that was built to 750. And that's just the math. Now at some point, that works till about 750. But every single time you divide that lot, and you could say, yeah, for the initial people that don't have that maybe built their house off to one side, and then you split this 2,000-foot lot, and then I'm looking here in the green pages, shall not apply a setback standard that requires setback from the lot line adjoining 2 lots created through a lot split. So now you can have 2 houses, and now you can build them side by side because now they don't have any, now there's nothing in the middle. Or I suppose you just divide your house in half. And I don't know what version of SimCity was used to come up with these, what version of SimCity the governor is playing that comes up with these bills. Because the math doesn't support it. Because instantaneously you could go, are you looking to see what version of SimCity he's playing? Is that what I heard? Okay. They're looking up, the sponsors are looking up to see what version of SimCity the governor is playing that he comes up with these bills. Oh, looking up, well, I'm sure the governor would only use the best. So now you've basically instantly declared that you can exceed the factor of safety, in this case, by 400%. And at some point, there's not enough water, there's not electricity, and there's nowhere for the sewage to go. And I'm not sure what SimCity does about the infrastructure when you're playing SimCity and then you build all these things on top of each other, and then you say, well, because now you could also build without restriction on height, as long as it's less than 45 feet or something like that. You could build a triplex. You could stack it up 3. Move in 3 shipping containers. Boom, boom, boom on each side. 6 homes. And what are we looking at? We're looking at, I mean, just the math of it, because I know everybody loves math. You're looking at a 2,000 square foot lot. That's 40 by 50. And then you can divide that into 20 by 40 to get 800 and 1,200. So 20 and 30. So you can get an 800 square foot and you can get a 1,200 square foot. Now, there's no setback in between, but typically on the outside there's going to be 10, and this said you're going to remove it, go down from 40 feet setback to 30-foot setback. So let's take 30-foot setback. Well, on that 40-foot deep lot, you have 10 foot. Now you're already on the back of your home. So maybe with a waiver, you can put a shed. A 3-story tall shed. because 2,000 square feet gets eaten up pretty quickly. Zero limits. Zero limits. Egress routes not really taken care of. I don't believe this is because next year, this won't be enough homes because the state demographer is still going to be somehow not smoking something where they're giving you the indication that we need 34,100 new homes every year. When we have vacancies, we have businesses that are moving out. We just had a billion-dollar industry move out. We have billions more moving out. They're going to take all of those homes with them. Why? And let's look at why we're doing this. Housing costs up 223%. Why are they up 223%? Well, because somewhere between 30 and 50% of the house cost of a home is regulation. That comes out of this room. I'm talking to builders now. We've got the asbestos stuff. The asbestos, in order to raise $200,000 a year to help with lead paint mitigation, they're really cracking down on asbestos. And what has asbestos in it? Every sheet of drywall, every sheet of tar paper, and every shingle is now going to be required. If it's not your permanent personal residence, it's now going to be required to be treated as hazmat. That's going to add $20 to $40 million per year to the cost of houses, to the drain on the economy. Could you fix that in this room? Yeah, we could fix that. I submitted an authorization to have a bill to fix that. Did it get approved? No. Because the governor can impose tiny houses on everybody's lot, and he can force from Denver, the bureaucracy in Denver can force all of the counties that they shall divide. And there's going to be places that, because they can instantly divide, they could take a $30,000 property and they could subdivide it and they could turn it into two 20s. And boom, there's $40,000. There's $10,000 profit. A little bit something on the side for the politicians who are going to support this stuff. Because it all just comes back to Denver. All that money can just go to Denver, because Denver now is going to impose all of its great ideas, all of its good intentions onto the municipalities of Colorado. And subject jurisdiction. Holy cow. I mean, that just has His Excellency written all over it. Jurisdictions are not subject, they are not subjects of the General Assembly, nor the governor. The purpose of the government is to secure the rights of the citizens, not to treat them as subjects. That makes this bill not only a bad idea, but a disgusting idea. I don't know why. I'm not questioning motive.
You've been walking up to the line pretty closely.
I haven't crossed it yet.
You've crossed it a few times. I'm being really patient today. You're welcome.
So the citizens of Colorado, our role on this side is to secure your certain self-evident creator endowed rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. On this side, and emanating far below this chamber, you are considered subjects. You are considered subjects. This bill considers you subject. It's right in the middle. It's on page 6. You are a subject. You'll do as you're told. You'll do as befits the excellencies of this room. And you will succumb to the arrogance of a government that has forgotten its charter. So I'm asking for a no vote on this bill. I'm asking for you to say no to the governor. I'm asking you to say no to SimCity, which is obviously not a really good high-quality version because it clearly did not deal with the sewer, the water, the electricity. It just showed everybody walking around saying everything is awesome, like the Lego movie. Just living the dream. Vote no on this bill. It's disgusting. I think it is funny that the party of abolition of private property is pretending to defend property rights in this. This is not a defense of property. This bill is not a defense of property rights. This bill is a carte blanche, state-driven violation of contracts. Because what zoning is a contract. When you buy a house in say it's R1, you buy a house in an R1 area, and you say, this is the area that I want to live. And you buy a property in that R1. And then in order to facilitate a large number of people living together in a cooperative sense, everybody in that R1 area has an agreement as to, in order to effectively self-limiting on what they're going to do. You have a contract with the city that says, I agree to abide in this area so that I can live in accordance with the requirements of the grid, of the sewer. I'm not gonna, I can't build a multi-story multiplex on my property. And the bill here that I'm looking at says 2,000 square feet. So when you enter into that contract, the purpose for entering into that contract then is you're saying that we are going to agree to live in proximity with each other as neighbors, and this is how we're going to do it. There's no, if you want to do what you're talking about, then you just create an area and you say the property size is all 1,000 square foot lots. And that is done in some areas. And it's 1,000 square foot lots, and the developer can develop in accordance with that. But the city and the municipality has not planned on these being one in their master plan. And so if this was something about local control, you would say they can. But what you're saying in this bill is that the state shall violate every single zoning contract that has been purchased in the state of Colorado. This is a contract is in effect property that you have entered into an agreement, that you have staked the value of your property, and now the value of your property is going to go down when, say, there's a vacant lot on that street, and then all of a sudden they divide it. And then they divide it and they say, well, now you can build a 45-foot unit on there because the state demographer says we need to. So we clearly have some different ideas on where the population is going. And I'm not really sure how, when I looked it up the other day, and that the business district has got a 40% vacancy rate in the business area. I'm not sure why they're vacant, because apparently people are coming into Colorado in droves. I'm not exactly sure what the international migration is, but I do know when I looked up the birth rate that it does not sustain our current population. And that's kind of across the other states as well. So this bill is an instantaneous violation of every single contract that the citizens of Colorado or in these certain municipalities of their subject jurisdiction, a term of art, in the subject jurisdictions have entered into. It is a violation of those contracts. This has completely voided them. Instead of saying, hey, you have a property and you have to have a 2,000 square foot property, probably it was like that for fire code. It was like that for water, to make sure that you have enough land in order for the water runoff, because you can't have a rain barrel more than 50 gallons. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to take all these houses, you're going to cram them into a small area. All that runoff is going to be, it's just going to be nothing but roofs. There's not going to be any drainage, not going to be any seepage, and all that water is just going to rush down and go out in storm drains. So no, this is absolutely not a defense of property rights. This is a violation of the property rights of everybody that does not want to subdivide their property, because it is going to devalue every adjoining property, every proximate property. It's going to devalue. The party of the abolition of private property is not somehow suddenly interested in you being able to do with your property what you want. They are interested in you living in a small house in a crammed in together municipality so that everybody can take the bus and sing "Everything is Awesome" on the way to work.